Let's get to the latest down in D.C. The House voted to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker in a historic vote. Now, Congressman Patrick McHenry, a Republican from North Carolina, will serve as acting Speaker for the time being. But Republicans do not have a clear pick as successor. For more on that, we want to bring in James Carville. He is a political strategist and host of the Politics War Room podcast. James, it's great to see you here. So I guess just your reaction to really what's played out over the last several days, ending with the vote that we got yesterday in the ouster and the fact that McCarthy was ousted.
You know, so many times my phone rings and the first thing I hear somebody say, "Can you believe this blank?" All right. And the truth is, I've just come to the point where I'll believe anything I see that comes out of Washington, including the events of yesterday. It's pretty remarkable, and when you view it in the historical context, it's even more remarkable. I mean, when you were watching it, you were saying, "That just can't be happening." And then when you actually read some of the commentary on it, it's more unbelievable than when you're watching it.
James, at what point do you believe that we are going to see some type of normalcy, whatever new normalcy looks like in Washington? When do you believe that will resume? What will it take? And will that address issues, especially economic issues, that Americans are putting upon both parties to try and come to common sense solutions around?
Well, first of all, I don't know, what happened yesterday was anything but common sense. And we've always had political parties and ideological differences, but the question is, when do we stop this descent? I wish I had a better idea. I suspect that the younger generation has a more positive view of pluralism in America than the older generation does. But it's a good question, and I can't answer it. And honestly, I don't think anybody else can. We can only hope.
James, what do you think this really tells us? The fact that the House is leaderless, the fact that it was done because of a small fraction within the party, the far right being able to do this, what it really tells us just about the direction of the GOP and what we can expect to play out over the next 13 months until the 2024 election?
Well, one of the things we always told that elections have consequences. Elections that have a narrow win really have consequences. And remember, the Democrats had the same majority, +4, that McCarthy had. And because of Pelosi's skill and just Democrats wanting to come together, we had nothing like these kinds of issues. And I think most of the stuff that's there now, they raised money off of the cell phone and they sent out blast requests. And Matt Gaetz probably had his biggest fundraising day. He doesn't care. Yeah, it's how much you can be on social media, how much you can raise online. And we're trying to run a government where people are not terrorized by bad stories about them, anything. They're terrorized by their cell phones and how people are going to respond to it. And that's how this stuff ends up.
Yeah, just as long as he's not doing that fundraising through Venmo. All the things considered here that we have to look forward to over the next year, where do you believe that in all of the conversation in and around Washington, Capitol Hill, where that will continue to move business leaders to want to place their own interests as well? Because that's one of the more kind of weighty parts of this that we continue to evaluate on a day in, day out basis, the business leaders that are looking for some type of answers.
Yeah, I say this in all sincerity. Everybody knows I'm a partisan Democrat. The only hope, if you're a business leader and listen to this, the only hope there is for this country is the Democratic Party. You may not like that, you may not like things about it, or you may say that they're conflicted or anything you want. But given the current makeup of the Republican electorate, there's only one party in this country that even is remotely possible of producing sanity. And I really mean that. Being it as a partisan, but if you look at where they are, the composition of the voters and the people that make up the respective political parties, if you're a business leader or you're somebody that sees country kind of moving forward together and that kind of stuff, that's the only hope you have. I'm sorry. Sorry to bring the bad news to you.
James, let's talk about what the Biden administration, what President Biden, the re-election campaign is focusing on, because we certainly have seen this shift in his narrative, or I should really say how he's framing the fight against inflation, where the economy stands. They were out with a new ad this week talking about the view on the economy, trying to highlight some of the things that have been accomplished within the administration. What do you, just given your years and years of experience, think of this strategy, and whether or not it's enough to really move the needle, given the fact that so many Americans still blame the Biden administration, whether they should or not, for the fact that prices are so high and the economy is where it is today?
It's always the argument. So you said people are not giving us credit for the economy, but look at what Paul Krugman says, or look at what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says. Well, look at what anybody else says. So the only way we can get credit is to take credit. But then somebody says, but yeah, if you take credit and you tell people the economy is good and they think it's not, then they have a backlash against you. I think they had to try to put in context the economic achievements they had, but it's so far it's proven to be a terribly hard sell. And the events of yesterday were 100% the fault generated by the Republican Party. But I do have I think it adds to people's sense that it just looks like everything is just going haywire in the country. And this might add to that sense too. But I don't blame them. They got to try to take credit. Got to be doing better than they're doing now. They're pretty sure they're pretty aware of that.